Perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Holston. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am the director here at the LGBT Chamber of Commerce of Illinois. Today, we are super excited to have you with us as we host our very first workshop of 2021. Super excited to be able to be partnering with Novova on this event, as well as being able to utilize our very own member and certified LGBTBE Xavier Billingsley to host today's conversation, Project Management Essentials for Small Businesses. Before we dive into Xavier's workshop, I just want to be sure to give us the opportunity, or give myself the opportunity, to tell you more about who we are at the Chamber. So we'll dive right in. And it seems like most of you are Chamber folks, so awesome. Again, if this is your first time joining us, this year is actually our 25th anniversary at the LGBT Chamber of Commerce. If you are from Chicago, an active LGBTQ person in the community, you may be familiar with Tracy Bain, who served as one of the founding members of the Chamber. I hope that all of you join us next month, February 9th, for our February Mix and Mingle. Tracy will be our guest, and she'll take us on a journey to learn more about the Chamber in our founding days back in 1996. We are an affiliate of the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce located in Washington, D.C. So if your business is 51% or more LGBTQ owned, managed, and controlled, we'd love to have you as a certified LGBT business and helping you get access to corporate and government contracting opportunities. For our members, this year, our goal is to get all of you to work on completing your directory profile. This right now, before Xavier starts speaking or after today's workshop, I encourage you to visit our directory page, find your business, and to see what your profile says. Make sure you have a description, make sure your links are still active, and a good description so you know about your products and services. So be sure to complete that task urgently and immediately. Very quickly, this slide provides an overview of the corporate partners here in Illinois that we work with. So again, if your company is B2B, if your company is looking to build a better network with corporate-based companies, again, we'd love to get you certified and help you to be a partner in building relationships with these companies here in Illinois. Our members are, today we have 300 member businesses, though we represent nearly 50,000 LGBTQ businesses around the state of Illinois. Here you can see that our LGBTQ business industry mirrors very much exactly as B2B industries across Illinois. We thrive in industries of all categories, sizes. We thrive in situations of having one employee all the way up to people who have 150 employees. And so huge thank you to our Rainbow and Platinum members who help us do great and dynamic work every day. Finally, want to make sure that all of you who are new or early stage LGBTQ business owners know about our LGBTQ Biz Bootcamp. The bootcamp is a 8-week program where we assist early stage LGBTQ business owners in being able to go through the journey in putting together their business plan, business pitch deck, and a polished 30-second elevator pitch. You also get access to guest speakers, mentors, and then end the program with a chance to pitch for a cash prize of $1,000. So stay tuned for this opportunity. If you know someone, please encourage them to join this program. So today, as you all know, we will be learning more about project management essentials for small businesses from Xavier Billingsley. Before we turn it over to Xavier, I'm excited to welcome Nancy from Novova to share briefly about who they are, the work that they do. And then from there, Xavier will be the next speaker. So Nancy will give us an update about Novova, and then from there, we'll go directly to Xavier. So thanks so much for being here, everyone. And we're excited to have a great conversation. Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you so much. It won't take a lot of time, but I just want to say how much we at Novova appreciate the opportunity to continuously partner with the LGBT Chamber in Chicago and Illinois, as well as the national organization. We are great friends, what's the right word? Strategic partners in the whole world of supplier diversity, because corporations, much like the ones that Jeremy just shared, who are your corporate members, also have supplier diversity programs, which include, besides inclusion of LGBT-owned businesses, they also include veteran and service disabled veteran-owned businesses. So as I was mentioning earlier, veterans are everybody. Veterans are women, minorities, and LGBT folks. All can be veterans. And so our mission is to certify all veterans for corporate opportunities, as Jeremy also mentioned, B2B type businesses, getting them certified and recognized in corporate supply chains as certified veteran or service disabled veteran-owned businesses. And the process is pretty efficient if you happen to have the NGLCC certification already. Coming over to Novova is quick and easy because we can streamline the process and take steps out. So because we know you've already been vetted and validated by the NGLCC. So I put my contact information in the chat. If any of you in the audience are veterans and would like more information, I'd be happy to set up a separate call, not to derail today's presentation, but think about us or your veteran colleagues if an additional certification would be beneficial for you, especially when you're talking with corporate customers. If they have veteran programs that they'd like to be able to count their relationship with you towards, they'll do it. They'll count you multiple ways if they can. So we want to make that available to all the members here on the Chamber's call today. So thank you so much for the opportunity to join you. Lovely to meet everyone, and I'm anxious to hear Xavier's presentation today.
Great. So Jeremy, you want me to go ahead and start now, or?
I think he does.
All right, let me share my screen. Get my presentation. Okay, missing one thing. Give me 1 second. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Which are you saying, the double screen or the single screen?
Double screen.
Okay, it's not what I want to share.
Go to, I forgot what setup this is.
Yeah, I was looking for it. It was here earlier. There was a setting where I can press it and it just will flip the screens, but I'm not seeing that right now. So I may have to do it another way. So give me 1 second.
That happens to me a lot as a presenter. It may be that you need to basically stop sharing your screen and then minimize your open screen, whatever you have open, and then just click on whatever 1, 2, 3 rather than the whole thing when it asks you. There you go.
Okay. All right. I think we're good now, right?
Yes.
All right. All right, guys. Thanks for joining today. I really appreciate you giving me your time and energy and joining us. What I want to do today is I want to really talk about project management for business owners. But the assumption I have is that most of us here that we're business owners and small business owners. And I kind of want to dispel some of the myths of why folks believe that small businesses shouldn't implement project management practices into their organizations. And then once we're done, the outcome of this is I want to give you guys a simple, repeatable framework that would help you to start managing projects internally, as well as even if you have clients that you're managing projects for, that you're delivering a product for, that you would now have a framework that you can use that yourself and your employees can now implement into your businesses and now have best practices for making sure that you can ensure that your projects are now successful. Okay, so managing a project is really no different from managing a business. When you think about it, you have outcomes to manage, you have employees to manage, you have cost and timelines to manage. You have to make sure that your customers are happy, and all while making sure that you're providing quality customer service. Now, these are really the same activities that we do as project managers. We have to make sure that we're meeting stakeholders' expectations, we're managing project schedules and project budgets, we're managing a team, we're managing timelines, we're making sure that whatever we're managing, that it's on track to meet the organization's strategic goal. So it's really the same. It's just that some of the things, there are a lot of tools and techniques that you can use just to make sure that you're being proactive. And to me, project management is really about being proactive. And if you have project managers and they're not able to get in front of issues before they turn into big issues, then you may want to kind of rethink maybe having some new processes in place. And, and that's something that I can help you guys with. Just to call out, once we're done, I'm going to give everyone the link to my website. Once you go there, because I'm going to go through some templates today that you can use once we're done so that you can manage a schedule, you can manage your risks, your issues, and some other things. So once I'm done, you can go to my website and then go to the resource link and you can just enter your information. You can download these templates whenever you want. All right, I just want to call that out. Okay, so let's talk about the benefits of project management. If you can implement a project management framework into your organization, one of the things you can do is you can minimize project risk and reduce project failures. In other words, you can set your projects up for success. It can help you be more efficient. It can help your employees be more productive, and you have a repeatable process and framework in place. And lastly, it can definitely help improve your product or service delivery. In a nutshell, it'll help you become a better business owner, and it can help you do business better and make sure that you're meeting the expectations of your customers and your clients. Now, what is project management? Let's start with what is a project. Now, some people get it confused when you look at a project and then you're looking at operational. A project, one, is a temporary endeavor. Once you're done with that project, you're going to produce a deliverable that's either a service, it can be an achievement, a required outcome, or it can be a product. That's what you're going to get at the very end of the project. Like I mentioned, it's temporary. It has a start and it has a finish. So if you have something that you think is a project, but it's going on and on and on and on, it's something you do every day, that's business as usual, and it's no longer a project and should be operationalized. It's a project is also unique in nature. And what it is not, as I mentioned earlier, is a routine operation. And if you look to the right of the chart, you can see, what a project is and what's considered business as usual. A project can be installing a new payroll system, designing or building a house, building a new software product, a new iPhone. Those are projects. A product is business as usual is payroll processing each month, building maintenance, car production line. Those are things that are business as usual and are not considered as projects because, one, it doesn't have a start and finish. Two, it's not unique in nature. And three, it's not a temporary endeavor. It's something that you're going to do continuously on and on and on. Now, what is project management? Project management is just a bunch of processes and tools that help you lead your team and make sure that you achieve the goals of the organization and you're meeting your company's success criteria within a specific timeline, okay? Now, within project management, you have different methodologies. I'm going to call out the most common three. The first one being a predictive life cycle. If you've heard of waterfall before, this is waterfall. With waterfall, this is kind of what they call traditional project management. And this means that all the planning is pretty much done up front. And then the client would not see any benefit or any business value until the project is complete. A perfect example of that would be in construction. You would not be able to see the business value or get any benefit out of that house until it's totally built 100% and you can move in. The next one is called Iterative or Agile. Agile allows you to be able to put that business value in the customer's hand early. And what do I mean by that? The first thing you do with Agile is you're going to deliver an MVP. So you're really delivering work in chunks, in pieces. But the MVP is going to be the first thing that you're going to deliver. An example of that would be if you look at your phone. The MVP of a phone is the minimum viable product. This is what I have to be able to use this product. So that means look at the iPhone, it has to be able to make calls and maybe send and receive text messages. That's the minimal viable product. I have a working phone. Then I would go and do other iterations so that I can add a camera, so that I can make sure I can go online. That's an example of Agile and being able to get that benefit in the customer's hands early. Then lastly, you have hybrid, which is really a combination of both, and which is most common in most organizations, to be honest with you. Agile is new, but it's not new. But a lot of companies are now beginning to adopt Agile, but because of their old practices, because of maybe their tooling or their hardware and software, they have to use a combination of both Agile as well as Predictive to deliver their projects. Now, what I want to talk about is called triple constraint. Another word for triple constraint is called an iron triangle. And really, this is the foundation of what your project is going to be built upon, as well as how you're going to control your project. So if you look at this triangle, you have three sides. You have one side is scope. Scope is basically the defined feature that you're going to deliver, whether it's a product, a service, or an achievement. That's your scope. Then you look at the cost. How much is it going to cost me to deliver this scope? And finally, you have your time. How long is it going to take me to deliver this scope? And then in the middle, you have quality. And that's basically, we know what quality is, client satisfaction, making sure that the product is good so that we can get repeat business. And that's the quality. Now, as you begin to move into your project, the first thing you do after you baseline your project, that means that I have my original cost, my time and scope. After you've baselined, you're going to find as you move through the project management life cycle that this triangle is going to begin to kind of warp a little bit and turn into a right triangle. And what I mean by that is if you impact one side of this triangle, it's going to impact something else. For an example, time. Let's say you get a request to finish the project faster. What's the trade-off there? The trade-off is I may have to get additional resources, maybe even go outside and hire a vendor. That's going to cost more money. So it's going to impact the other side of the triangle. If you don't get the additional cost, then maybe, okay, I can't spend more money, but I still have to deliver earlier. Look at the scope. Maybe we can de-scope, maybe we can remove some features so that we can make sure we can get the client what they need. So when you're looking at the iron triangle, again, this is basically these are the three cornerstones. I'll say four because I didn't want to include quality there that your project is going to be built
on. Xavier, a quick
yes.
question. When you talked about like one of the things you could be working towards is like an achievement, like towards a project, what's like an example of like an achievement?
You know, actually, I'm going to get to that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'm actually going to talk about that. That's a great question. Thank you. And if I don't address your question, let me know. All right, so what I want to do is I want to give you guys something that's really, really simple and easy that you can implement into your business. So I'm going to focus on the top 4 to 5 things that you really need in order to have an effective project management practice within your organization. One, we're going to define, which will get to your answer, your question, Jeremy, define what you want to achieve. The second thing we're going to go over is what needs to be done and by when, and I actually should have added a third element, by whom. That's our schedule component. The third piece we're going to dive into is how much will it cost? So we're going to just the high level touch an estimating technique that I would recommend. And then fourth, we're going to dive into how to monitor and control your work, as well as keeping your clients and your stakeholders happy and making sure that they're informed of the progress. Okay, so before starting any project, the first thing you want to do is define your scope. And this is really your achievement, Jeremy, and I'll break it down a little bit more. So defining your scope, defining your scope, you want to make sure that it's crystal clear. Within the predictive life cycle, your scope, once you've defined your scope should be locked. And that means that you should not add any additional features or scope. If you do, it's going to increase your costs and maybe increase your schedule. Sometimes you have to, but you have to make sure in order to really manage your scope, you've got to make sure that it's crystal clear and it has to be objective and driven and in measurable terms. And I'm going to dive into that, especially for business owners. I really want to dive into this a little bit more, and I will in the next slide. So there are certain specific elements that I want you guys to document in this one page, and it shouldn't be any more than one page. One, sorry. First thing is, what is the project? That's the first thing you want to describe. What's your scope? Now, once you dive a little bit deeper into your scope, you want to ask, what problem am I solving by doing this project? And that'll kind of help you decide whether it's worth doing or not. Because if you're not really solving a problem with your project, if you're not growing your business, if you're not making your customers happy, then I don't know, like what are you doing? If you're not creating a new product, like what are you doing? So you want to make sure that you're solving some type of business problem. 3, you want to know, what is your business benefit? What do I mean by that? What benefit do I expect to see once this project is complete? So if I use, for an example, measurement of success, maybe I'm a one-person shop and my business is growing pretty quickly, pretty fast. But because of that, it's pulling me away from maybe doing those things I need to do to make sure that my customers are happy. So I'm beginning to lack quality. I'm not answering customers' questions in time. I'm not sending out the products on time. And now I'm beginning to get a lot of complaints. So the business problem I want to fix is I want to improve my customer service so that my clients are happier. Now that's very vague. And to make it measurable, which I'll jump into in a bit, you want to make sure that you describe what's called your measurement of success. And that is, how do I know once this project is done that it is successful? So you make it measurable. So for example, for the customer service issue, you want to make sure that that you improve your customer survey response rate by 75%. That's a measurable goal, and it's something that you can achieve. You can also manage it. So you want to make sure that your goals and whatever project you're building, you're developing, you're delivering, you want to make sure that you have that quantifiable, measurable element just to make sure that you're achieving that goal. Okay, so the business benefit would be, hey, maybe I'll stop drinking a bottle of wine every night. That's personal. Maybe I'll stop drinking a bottle of wine every night because I'm so stressed out. A real business benefit is my customers will be happy. So now I can retain more customers and I can continue to grow my business. That's the business benefit. And then once you've defined your measurement of success, then you want to have your high level achievement. And that's basically a high level deliverables that would help you meet that success criteria for your MOS. And then you also want to show any dependencies that you may have. Dependencies are anything that you or the project are dependent upon in order to do your work. So an example of that is if I'm a carpenter, I can't install any drywalling until the building is closed off and the windows and roofing are installed. Those are dependencies. So you can list your dependencies, and then finally, I want you to list any assumptions. What are your, I'm sorry, not finding, what are your assumptions? What do you think to be true about this project that you want to document? And then finally, any known risks that you may have or may be aware of, document those too. And all of this should be able to fit on a one pager unless you have a really, really huge project. But these are the things that you know, these are the things that you're going to pass off to your project manager and to your team, and they're going to keep you focused on the business result. Did I answer your question, Jeremy?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so once you've completed the one pager, the next thing you want to do is break down your MOS or break down your scope by doing a work breakdown structure. And the work breakdown structure is basically just decomposing your scope into smaller chunks of work until you get all the way down to the task level. And there are different ways. I'm sorry, I really have a tickle in my throat. I really apologize. Now, there are different ways or different types of work breakdown structures that you can do. The most common is a work breakdown structure based on deliverables. So if you look at a house, for example, a 3-bedroom house, if you break down the house, the 3-bedroom house, then you're going to drill down, you're going to lay the foundation, and you're going to install a roof, you're going to lay the bricks, you're going to install the windows. Those are deliverables. And that's the most common way that most people set up their work breakdown structure. But as business owners, I want you to really, really drive home and think about the business outcome, the business value, and the business result that you want. And to do that, you have to me, you should break it down by your measurement of success, because it's something that's measurable and it's quantifiable and it's easier to manage. Plus, it helps you to really think through, how do I want to break down my project? And what things do I need to meet the success criteria? So if we look at this example, first thing we have is our measurement of success. And that is to reduce customer response time from 24 hours to 2 hours or less. He's getting complaints because he's not getting back to customers quick enough. The support is he pretty much doesn't have a support system. So that's my measurement of success. And then you start to think, okay, so how do I achieve that? And then that's when you want to go to your high level achievements. One, okay, maybe I can hire someone. I'm making enough money to bring someone in, maybe not full time, but he looked and he saw that, okay, he can hire an offshore resource to take care of this and take care of the support 5 days a week. The other high level achievement is he wants to make sure that he can automate processes and he can handle at least 90% of his customer inquiries via online. That's his second high level achievement. Now, if I break it down further, if you look at high level achievement number 2, I have that he's going to order a bot subscription so that the offshore resource can help him manage that whenever he get inquiries right there on the spot. And he's also going to build a database of frequently asked questions so that he can direct the customers there first. And if they can't get their questions answered there, then they can go and they can contact the customer service. And then once you break it down from here, then you can break it down to the different task level. And the task level is where you're going to assign your resources and your resource estimates and your duration. Okay, the project schedule. So once you have your work breakdown structure, it kind of helps you structure how your project schedule is going to be formatted. And that's pretty important. Now, some people just go and they throw a bunch of tasks into a project schedule. And once they begin to manage the project, it doesn't help. It means absolutely nothing, because a well thought out project schedule should be able to allow you to see when issues are happening early or even before they happen. That's how it should be structured. And it should also be a communication tool so that you can communicate to your stakeholders what's happening with the timeline. it should be able to do those two things. Now, before you build your schedule, one of the things you want to look at is you want to determine your reporting structure. So either you as the business owner, or if you have stakeholders externally, you want to be able to capture and understand what things are important that they want you to report on, that they want to see how things are progressing. They may just want to, if you can tell them the project is 50% complete and that's all they want to know, then that's fine. You should have a pretty simple project plan. But if they tell you that they want to see every single feature and how each feature is progressing, then you have to make sure that you have those different buckets in your project schedule, and those activities are rolling up to those buckets so you can see what your percent complete is compared to what you've originally planned. So that's important. And that also calls to the stakeholders' expectations. What are they looking for? What type of information do they need? How often do they need it? So you want to make sure you have all of those things. But before you even get to your schedule, you have to make sure that you have a complete work breakdown structure, and that is an input into your schedule. Any questions before I move on? Okay. Now, when you're building your schedule, there are specific steps that you need to take. One is you want to define your milestones. Your milestones are pretty much those marks of measure within your plan, your schedule, that are kind of like touch points almost. So for example, if you're building a brand new software from scratch, the first thing you need to do is get requirements. That's a milestone. You need to do architectural design. That's a milestone. You need to do the coding. That's a third milestone. You need to test it, a fourth milestone. And finally, you go live. Those are milestones. So you want to come up with those first. And then once you've come up with your milestones, and you want to define the activities you need to complete the work. And that's pretty simple. Sometimes you can do it on your own, but if it's a bigger project, then you're going to have to go to the people who are actually doing the work and make sure that you get those activities, just to make sure you don't miss anything. Now, once you have those activities listed in your project schedule, then the third thing you want to do is sequence your activities. All that means, earlier we talked about dependencies. These are basically dependencies. So for example, you can't install the windows before you install the brick if you're building a home. So you have to sequence those just to make sure that you have everything sequenced the way that it should go in order to have a finished product. The fourth thing you need to do is you have to estimate activity resources. How many resources are you going to need to complete these activities? And then the fifth thing you do is you're going to estimate the activity duration. How long is the task going to take? Now, I do want to call this one out a little. When you're building your project schedule and you're meeting with that resource, the best thing to do is to go to that resource directly and have them give you what that level of effort is, which is basically an estimate. You have them give it to you. What that does is, for one, they've been doing this work for a long time, hopefully. It's a repeatable process. They should know it like the back of their hands. So they should be able to give you a more refined estimate. The second thing it does is it makes them commit more. You have that level of commitment from them because they have to defend the number that they gave you. So you want to make sure that you get those get those durations from the person who's actually doing the work. And the third thing I want you to do is, when you get in those activity durations, I want you to make sure that you get an allocation percentage. So if you just, in reality, when this one person, they're not going to work on your project all day, every day, right? They probably have other projects that they're doing or internal work that they're doing. So you want to see how much time do they have to allocate on completing that task for your project. So if we look at, for example, if he tells us it's going to take 40 hours, considering we have an 8-hour work day, then we assume that the project is going to be complete in 5 days, right? But if he tells us he only has 50% available to do the work, then that's going to extend that timeline from 5 days to 10 days. So you want to make sure that you capture that. And then finally, once you've gotten the team members, the estimates, you have people sign up on your estimates. If you're working with the sponsor, have them sign off. And then you want to baseline your schedule. What is baselining? That's basically just taking a snapshot of your schedule as it is today, and that is going to be your original plan. So then you can begin to run metrics like actual plan, what you plan against what's actually happening. And you want to be able to have those two data points so that you can provide your stakeholders with the information that they need. Now, when it, yes.
Quick question. I know we are recording the video of this, but someone did ask, will you be sharing this slide deck also?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you.
Now, when it comes to estimating, there are different ways to estimate, but the one that I prefer is 3-point estimating technique. The reason I prefer it is, for one, if you ask around, one of the biggest issues that most folks have when they're building their budget is when they go out and get estimates, the estimates are always high. And that can be a problem. The reason being is, if you're telling me if your estimate's coming high and it's $20,000 more, end up being $20,000 less than what you've estimated, as an organization, as a CEO, I could have used the additional $20,000 and I could have set up a whole new project. So you want to try to get the estimates as close as possible to reality. And people also get nervous for some reason when you ask for estimates, because they know they have to defend that number. So that's another reason why they estimate high. Now, with 3-point estimating, you're going to ask for 3 data points. You're going to get an optimistic guess. And what that is if all the stars align, here's what I think, how much time I think it would take for me to complete my task. The most likely guess, based on expert judgment and experience, here's where I really think it's going to take in order for me to complete my task and activities. Worst case is, man, if things go wrong, I'm probably going to spend 1,068 hours if things go wrong, which more than likely, nothing goes perfect. So I would err more on the side of the worst case. Now, I have a spreadsheet, a 3-point estimating spreadsheet after the class. If you go to my website and go to resources, you can pull this down and it'll calculate all this for you automatically, because it takes like these means and standard deviations, and it comes up with this average. And with this particular one, I've added 3 additional elements, and that's the confidence level. So if I didn't have those 3 points, the 70% would be, this is what I expect to spend 968 hours to complete the work. But if I'm talking to my stakeholder, okay, Mr. Stakeholder, if you raise this to an 80% confidence level that we would complete this work on time, then it'll take 983 hours. Or you want a 90% confidence level, it's going to take 992 hours, because maybe I have to get additional resources or whatever. So this is, to me, an excellent way to make sure that you have good estimates. Now, how do you control your schedule? So you've built your schedule. Let's say the project is live, not live, it's in execution, and you're having issues. Let's say one of your developers was out 2 weeks sick because of whatever. So your schedule is now behind 2 weeks. So we have something within your schedule, which is called your critical path. And the critical path is a longer sequence of activities in the project plan, which must be completed on time. So in other words, if any activity is on this critical path, if that activity is late one day, your project is going to be late one day. If it's early one day, your project is going to be delivered early one day. And the critical path as project managers is something that we have to manage very, very, very closely, very closely. Now, if you don't have Microsoft Schedule, or you don't have experience doing forward paths and backward paths so that you can figure out what the critical path is, look at critical path this way. Just common sense. If you have activities within your schedule and you know without a doubt, if this is late, my project is going to be late. That's just identified as your critical path. Okay, you don't have to have the calculations or anything, but once you get a scheduling software, then you should be looking at the critical path. Okay, and within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to do a webinar on scheduling so you can get more detailed information on this. Okay, now if you are in trouble and as I mentioned, a project is now going to maybe 2 weeks late because our developer is out sick, you have two methods that you can use to bring your project plan back in alignment. One is called fast track. What fast track means is that you look at all those items, activities on your critical path, and you look to see what activities can you run in parallel. That means they can happen at the same time. Typically, you have, once one activity is finished, another one starts. So you can begin to move that task in. Maybe it can start 5 days earlier and start running tasks in parallel. The other way of optimizing your schedule is, or compressing your schedule is called crashing your schedule. And basically what that means is that you take additional resources and you add those resources to those items on your critical path. And doing that, you can begin to now, if the schedule is late, you can begin to now move those activities in back into alignment to where you would deliver on time. Okay, very important. Any questions? Okay. All right, now the third thing you want to do is calculate your cost. How much is it going to take me to implement this project? Now, when you're estimating your cost, you should look at certain things, and you may even have more, but just the more common categories is your human resources, and we kind of just went over that with our developer. You should, any material or equipment you have, any travel, if you have a vendor or professional services, that should be estimated as well. You have any implementation costs, like if you have to do training, or if you have change management, that should be estimated, as well as hardware, software, and licenses. And there may be some more things that you can do. It all depends. As a business owner, you can set these categories for your company. But the main ones will be human resource, material, vendor, and travel are the main ones. Now, once you determine your budget, as far as controlling your budget, at the bare minimum, what you want to be able to, the type of data you want to be able to get is by those categories that you've set up and that you've estimated against, what is the original budget versus what I've actually spent, and then that's going to give you a variance. So if you look at example number 2 for hardware, I estimated that I'm going to spend $530,000 in hardware, but I spent more. I have a $14,000 variance. So at a minimum, that's how you want to manage your project cost at a minimum. Now, what I recommend is what's called cost forecasting. Basically, forecasting is, you're saying if you have a 3-month long project, you can forecast using this method what your project spend is going to be after that 3-month period. And the way you do that is, one, if you look here, and I have this spreadsheet as well that's available for you. So if we look at John is we're paying him $50 an hour, right? He forecasted, in order to do the development for our project, that he can finish within 40 hours. Now, on the right side where I have the different weeks, what I want to call out, I have weeks 1 through week 4. This is where you're going to put the time that John actually worked on your project. So you need some type of mechanism where you can track actuals. Okay, I know if you can do it via your time card, or it may just have to be a manual process. But if you look at it, if you do this weekly, depending on how long your project is, week 1, John only worked 10 hours on this particular project. He told us it was going to take 40 hours. So if I look at this, there's cause for alarm. I'm going to reach out to John. Hey, John, you told me it's going to take 40 hours. Do you have enough time next week to really do 30 hours against this particular project? Oh, no, Xavier. I meant to call you and tell you, after working on it, I saw that it's not going to take 40 hours. I can really finish this in 30 hours. Then you're revising your estimate. You put that in, you're revising your estimate. So what this is saying is that he's forecasting now to work 30 hours. And at the end of the day, once it's done, I'm going to spend $1,500 as opposed to spending $2,000. So you want to make sure that you do some type of forecasting. Now, finally, how do I keep my clients happy? I may have to run through this. I know I got like 14 more minutes. How do you keep your clients happy and make sure that they're informed and you're controlling the work. So we're going to go through change requests, risk management really quickly, and communicating. Now, within project management, we have something called project baselines. And you heard me mention it when we talked about the schedule. Once you have your schedule has been approved, we're going to baseline it as this is our original schedule. Take a snapshot. You're going to also do that for your cost and your, as well as your scope. So these are our project baselines. So any changes that come after we baseline our plan, in any of these three corners, we have to make that change official via what's called a change request. Sorry, go back one ahead of myself. Now, a change request basically is a document or a process that if any changes are made to any of these baselines, it has to be approved before you can update your budget. So if you get, maybe you have to hire an additional resource and it's an extra $2,000, now your budget changes. Once you get that, submit a change request and you get it approved, that's the only way you can update any of these baselines. So you want to make sure you have a change control process in place as well. Now, if you can do risk management, you are awesome. To me, risk management is the cornerstone of project management, and it's the cornerstone to being proactive and trying to get in front of issues early. That's what folks pay project managers to do. So I'm going to walk through the processes of managing risks on a project. Okay, so when it comes to risk management, there are two types of risks that we have. One risk is called, you have known risks. Now, I don't know if you remember, but at the very beginning of this, when I had the one pager, we talked about all those things that I wanted you to call out on that one pager. One of those are the known risks. So these are any risks that based on experience, expert judgment, that you can foresee that may happen on your project. Those are known risks, and you want to document those. The next thing you want, the next type of risk we have are unknown risks. These are risks that I don't know. I don't know if this is going to happen or not. We have no idea. So the only way you can plan for those and plan for those is to set aside two things. From a budget perspective, you set aside a contingency reserve. So that's additional funding in case those unknown risks happen. And you also, within your schedule, when you're building out your plan, if there are any tasks or activity that you think that may have a lot of risk and may be very risky, you want to build in additional time within that particular task, like maybe an additional 2, 3, 4, 5 days, just to make sure that if the risk does happen, you have time and you have money to fix it, okay? Now, the next thing you're going to do is prioritize those risks. You write down your risks and then you're going to prioritize them. And the way you're going to prioritize your risk is you're going to have a probability and an impact. And those are going to be prioritized from high, medium, and low. The probability is the likelihood of this particular risk occurring. Is it going to happen? How likely is this risk to actually happen? The impact is the effect that it will the risk have on your project. And that's really the effect is, will my project fail? Okay, if this risk happens, my project will fail. So after you've gone through, you've identified your risk, you've identified the probability, rated them from high, medium, and low, you identify the impact, rated from high, medium, and low. Any one of these risks that are considered high, pull those to the top of your risk register, and you want to make sure that you have risk response for those. You really should have it for all of them, but sometimes you come up with a bunch of risks and you just don't have the time. But you want to make sure you have a risk response for all of those high risks at a minimum. And the types of risk response that you have, and these are really your mitigation strategies. So the first one is you just simply avoid the risk. The impact is too heavy. There's a likelihood it will happen. So then you replan your project so that you can totally avoid that risk and it won't happen. The next one is to mitigate your risk. Really is you're reducing the impact of that risk is when you mitigate. The third risk response is to transfer. And what that means is you're basically paying someone else to take on that risk for you. And a perfect example of that is getting insurance. That's transferring the risk. And the third, fourth one is you just accept it. But to me, you never really accept the risk and do nothing. You can say, okay, this risk may happen, I accept it, but then you come up with some type of contingency plan in place so that you can reduce the impact as well as the likelihood of this risk. And then finally, when you're monitoring your risk, you want to make sure that you're going to document all of your risk in what's called a risk register, and you want to monitor this. You don't fill it out once and just put it off to the side. You constantly monitoring this to see if any of those risks are happening, see if there are any triggers or anything, and then see if you have to pull your contingency plan or maybe pull folks in a meeting so that you can come up with some type of strategy so that you can rectify the problem. So that's how you're going to monitor your risk. Now, this is an example of a risk register. And if you look at it, I have everything I talked about, the priority, I have my contingency and mitigation plan written out. I have who actually owned the risk. I have a trigger date that if this doesn't happen by 9/15, then the project is in trouble. My probability, I have my impact, and that probability and impact gives me a risk score of 73%, which means that it's a pretty high risk, that high chance that it may happen, 73% chance that this risk may happen. And then I have my risk response. Now there's another section in regarding to risk managing risk, which is quantifying the risk that I didn't get to today because it kind of take a lot, but feel free to reach out to me if you want more information. I also have on my YouTube channel a training where I'm going through risk management, and that'll give you that information. Okay, keeping your stakeholders happy and informed. When you're starting your project, you want to think of ways that you can communicate to your team as well as to your stakeholders, your sponsors, or your clients. You need information so that you can spew out to them. So one of the things you can do when you think of your meeting cadence, you want to think of what types of meetings do I need in order to get the information from my client, and what types of meetings do I need to communicate this information to my client. So if you look here, I just have a daily stand-up, which is a 15-minute meeting that I reach out, work with my team so that I can get status updates. You can have a monthly readout as opposed to a weekly readout. How do I communicate? Do I want to have a formal meeting, or do I want to communicate status via email? And then who are my stakeholders, my key stakeholders? Are they your clients? Is it internal team? Is it leadership? Is it the board members? So you have to figure all that out, and that'll let you know how you want to communicate and what vehicle you want to use to communicate your status and updates and progress to the people who are looking for this information and find it important. All right, so last slide. So keeping your stakeholders informed. As an owner, or if you have project managers reporting to you, giving you this information, there are 5 data points at a minimum that you're going to want from them, okay? 1, as of today, where should we be? As of today, we should be 50% complete, or we should have spent, burned through 65% of our budget. We should have, development should be almost complete. That's where we should be today, but okay, so where are we? Today, we are only 50% complete. We're behind because the developer has been out sick for 2 weeks. And then you're going to go into and explain your variance or issue. What is the issue? And then come back and give me, don't just tell me the issue, but what is your corrective action plan to fix this issue? How are you going to fix it? And then finally, what support do you need from me or from my stakeholders or from executives to help you resolve this problem? So if you have at least, when they're giving you status readouts, if you have at least those 5 pieces of information, you should be able to get to the so what and the information that you need so that you can make clear informed decisions, or so that your client can make clear and informed decisions. Now, what tools do you need? You don't need a project management system in order to do this. If you have Microsoft Office, Excel, Word, and PowerPoint, that's really all you need, especially for smaller projects. If you can get a subscription of Microsoft Projects. If you're going to be building schedules often, I would suggest that as opposed to building schedules in Excel. But that's really all you need for right now to get started. if you want more information, or you have a staff and you want training or coaching for your project managers, or you have a staff and you just want to teach them project management practices or framework, I'm available to do that. If you want to learn a little bit more about some of what I talked about, I also have a store where you can go and purchase on-demand project management courses, practice exams. And if you are a project manager, I also have courses where you can earn your PDUs, up to the 60 PDUs you need to certify. And I'm going to ask everyone if you could please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe and like. That would be beautiful. I really appreciate that. And as I mentioned, if you look, you can go to my website and go to resources, and you should be able to download those templates that we talked about today. All right, that's it. Are there any questions?
Great. Thank you so much, Xavier. And everyone, I will, unless Xavier beats me, well, I'll still do it anyway, but I will send out, when I send out the wrap-up email, I will be sure to include those links. So you can just go to and easily be able to subscribe there also. So any final questions from anyone? It does look like, Xavier, you had a lot of people who are really interested in just learning more information. So I know there were some people who were interested in the scheduling training. It looks like some people are going to go to the website. So definitely more opportunities down the road. So thank you so much for that.
Sure.
So everyone who's watching this video, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at a chamber workshop or networking event in the near future.
All right. Thank you, guys.